We are now going to log in to a course as if we were a student. This is a typical login page for a student. We usually customize these pages for different clients. The first thing the student will see is the option to take a tour around the platform. This means that they will see what resources and tools are available on the platform, how to contact the tutor, etc. The tour is offered in different languages. If the students go directly to the course, this is what they see. This student has access to a complete level of a General English course, which contains 10 units. If a student has access to the first half of the level, Part A, they have access to the first 5 units and the mid-level test. If they have access to Part B, they have access to Units 6 to 10 and the final test. On the right, you can see a series of pie charts, which is where the student's progress on the assessed components of the course is displayed. Underneath the units, you can see a section which is called Progress, which is where a student can see how much of the course she or he has completed. They can also see the end date, and if they want, the exercise scores. We are now going to have a look at one unit of the General English course. Each unit is structured in exactly the same way, so once you are familiar with the structure of one unit, the rest will look the same. We are going to look at Unit 4, the ball game. The first thing you see is the structure of the unit. You can see the unit begins with a contents page which outlines the contents of each of the different sections in the unit. You'll notice as well that the unit has a title. In this case, it's called The Ball Game. Each unit is structured around a common topic or theme, so the language in each of the sections is related to this topic. We begin each unit with what we call a start section. In the same way as in a face-to-face class, we begin the class with a warmer, we replicate this in the units. So most exercises here are fun, general knowledge type exercises designed to stimulate an interest in the topic. In this example, the student has to read different descriptions of sports and games and identify which sport or game is being described. The next section, the reading section, is central to the unit. This is where students are exposed to a lot of language in context, which will be developed in other sections of the unit. In this case, the text is in Tab 2 of the section. Tab 1 displays a pre-reading task and gives us a good example of how the course is designed to provide the student with constructive feedback. Rather than just answering correct or incorrect, the program responds to the student in a similar way as a teacher would respond in the classroom. If we get the answer wrong, we are told, "Not this recently," to encourage us to think and choose a different answer. On the second tab, the students read the text and try to choose the picture which best matches the description. The text describes a game that was played in the past. If the student chooses the incorrect picture, they are again given constructive feedback, which explains why their choice is incorrect, to try to encourage them to read the text again to identify the correct answer. You'll also notice that in the text, some of the words are underlined. These words are linked to a glossary and are words that we consider a student at this level might not understand. Students can also select a sentence or phrase and listen to a person reading the sentence or phrase. To do this, they click on Listen.
The game is no longer played, and its rules were never written down, so what is known about this sport is based on ruins.
They can also click on the Translate option, which opens up the selected text in Google Translate. The next section focuses on vocabulary related to sports and games. In the text, in the reading section, the students were exposed to a lot of language related to sports and games. In this section, we draw their attention to this language and build on it.
In the final exercise, students revise vocabulary from the unit using the speech recognition tool. This particular exercise is designed as a multiple choice exercise, but instead of clicking on the correct answer, students say the sentence with the correct option, giving them the opportunity to say the new words as well as providing more general fluency practice.
The next section is grammar. Again, we focus on aspects of grammar which students were exposed to in the text, in the reading section. In this section, we draw the students' attention to these aspects of grammar and work on them. The first thing we ask the students to do is identify what modal verbs are. Once we have established that they know what they are, we then look at the meaning of some of these modal verbs. We give them examples of sentences with these modal verbs in context and ask them whether the modal verbs indicate probability or obligation. We then see if the students can use the modal verbs in this way by getting them to do sentence transformations using the modal verb given. It's only when we get to exercise 4 that we actually present the form to the students. This is what we call an inductive approach to teaching grammar. Rather than telling the students rules about how to use grammar and getting them to practice them, we're helping the students to discover the rules for themselves through a process of guided discovery. In the listening section, again, we take the topic of the unit, which is games and sports, and expose the students to different listening exercises on these topics. In this first exercise, the students will listen to 8 different situations.
The rain has arrived and the umbrellas are coming out, but the players are staying on court for the moment.
If a student finds the listening difficult, they can slow down the speed of the listening.
Romescu now leads by 4-1 in the second set.
If the student chooses the wrong answer, again, they get constructive feedback to help them understand why the answer is incorrect.
In the practice section, we encourage the students to reflect on what they've learnt so far. In writing tutorial 1, the students see for the first time that they need to interact with their tutor. They are instructed to produce a piece of writing which puts into practice language which they have worked on in the grammar and vocabulary sections. In this tutorial, they need to use modal verbs to speculate on what they think happened. They need to send this piece of writing to their tutor for his or her comments and a mark by using the mail program on the platform. The tutor receives this and sends the student feedback, corrections, and a mark. They then move on to a section called Takeaway English. In this section, we develop situational, practical, and functional language. English that is useful for everyday situations. This section lends itself very nicely to using a lot of videos. In this particular unit, because we are talking about doing sport, this section looks at telling people what to do in a gym.
Okay, now this next exercise stretches your thigh muscles, but with the overall effect of strengthening the muscles in your lower back.
Which is where I'm weak.
Exactly. By tightening up your thigh muscles, we can take some of the strain off your back. Okay, so now take hold of the back of the chair and bend back your leg.
Also, if you click on tab 7, you will see another speech recognition exercise. Here, students practice saying longer sentences. In this case, instructions, in keeping with the theme of the unit. First, they listen to a model.
Make sure you keep your back flat on the floor.
Then they record themselves giving the instruction.
Make sure you keep your back flat on the floor.
The tool provides immediate feedback, and students can try to improve their pronunciation by listening to themselves
Make sure you keep your back flat on the floor.
and repeating the recording as often as they like.
From here, we go on to the pronunciation section. In the same way that the vocabulary and grammar focused on language which the student had already seen in the context of the reading, in the pronunciation section, we look at pronunciation features which the student has been exposed to in the listening or takeaway English sections. In this example, we focus on the instructions in the takeaway English videos and how we phrase language, looking at pauses and sentence stress. In the first exercise, the students have to identify where the speaker pauses.
Lie on your back on the floor and rest your legs on a chair. Your knees should be bent at a 90-degree angle.
In the second exercise, we break the instructions down into phrases and get the students to notice which word is stressed. They start noticing that we tend to emphasize the last word in the phrase.
Lie on your back on the floor and rest your legs on a chair. Your knees should be bent.
In the third exercise, the student has to break up the text into phrases and work out where the sentence stress is.
This exercise is good for your leg muscles.
And in the final exercise, students practice reading fluency by reading an entire paragraph aloud.
This exercise is good for your leg muscles. Stand facing a wall or door. Place your right leg in front and your left foot directly behind you.
Again, they receive immediate feedback about how well they did. Words highlighted in yellow show where their pronunciation needs improving. After clicking the next button, students can see what their speaking rate was in terms of words per minute and what percentage of words was recognised.
They then move on to a section called the forum. The forum is where we invite students to think about the topic of the unit and share their opinion about the topic on level-specific forums. They need to prepare a piece of writing and post it in the forums and read what other students have written. This section is optional. It's optional because some students don't see the point in putting these tasks on forums, but other students really enjoy doing this.
Writing Tutorial 2 is the second writing tutorial of the unit.
It is always an extended piece of writing, and one of the options is usually the same text type as the students were exposed to in the reading section. This means the students have gone full circle, from reading a text at the beginning of the unit to producing a similar text at the end. This is known as a text and task-based approach to material writing. The final task is then sent to the tutor using the mail program on the platform.
In the speaking section, we have a series of exercises that sensitize students to different aspects of pronunciation and provide speaking practice through the speech recognition tool. The first exercise focuses on the difference between two vowel sounds. And in the second and third exercise, students practice saying words with the muscle and or sounds.
Sport.
This is followed by a listening exercise where they listen to someone talking about sport.
I'm not very keen on sport. I think I must have been put off it at school.
In the final exercise, they are then asked to record themselves reading the transcript to practice fluency. As in the previous exercise we looked at in the pronunciation section, the tool analyzes the recording and provides the speaking rate and the percentage of words recognized.
Up to this point, the material that we have been looking at is the same in the Essential Plus and the Premium version of the course material. However, the next section, Speaking Tutorial, is only found in the Premium version of the course. In this section, the student sees an outline or script at lower levels to help them to prepare to have a conversation with their tutor in English. On an agreed day and time, the student contacts their tutor by Skype or other system to have their speaking tutorial. This is a 20-minute conversation with their tutor in real time. The tutor sends the student written feedback after the conversation. The next section is the review section, which is a light-hearted review of what the student has studied in the unit. There is a link to a PDF document which includes a summary of the most important language studied in the unit, which the students can download and have access to once the course is finished.
And finally, we have the test section. This is when we formally assess what the students have learned. Students can only take the test once. Section 1 looks at vocabulary. Section 2, Grammar. Section 3, Functional Language. Section 4, Reading Comprehension. And Section 5, Listening Comprehension. The marks students are awarded for the test section will contribute to the final grade.
The feedback section is where the student is given the opportunity to give his or her opinion about the unit. Tutors receive a copy of this feedback in the mail program, and it also registers on the platform.